For the last 10 years, not much has changed in the world of annular cutters. You may be familiar with our Intruder line, which is a high-speed steel cutter, and that's really been about the same for the last 10 years or so as well. There are some improvements that we've made to our cutters recently. I wanted to go over those today and also tackle some common questions that come up in the world of cutters. So as you know, an annular cutter, there's not a whole lot to it. The main ways that you can increase or decrease performance on a cutter is by the quality of steel, the inside boring, how that's shaped, and then the teeth on the actual cutter. For many years, the teeth on the cutter have been shaped exactly the same. And what that does is, as you're cutting, each tooth is doing the same work. For a while, that was thought to be great. But as we did more research and looked into it further, it only meant that about every other tooth was working because they're all doing the same exact thing. Not every tooth is making contact at the same time. So, our new cutters, each tooth is shaped slightly differently. So each tooth is doing a different type of cut. So to illustrate the difference in the tooth geometry, I have a traditional high-speed steel cutter. You can see every tooth on here is shaped the exact same. So what generally happens is not all teeth are working at the same time since they're all doing the exact same thing. To compare, I have a carbide tip cutter with alternating cut, which means each tooth is shaped slightly different than the one before it. So each tooth is working as the cutter is cutting. Now, we also have the same tooth design in a high-speed steel, but I just brought up a carbide tip to show the difference. The inside of the cutter also has a bevel to make ejecting the slug a lot easier. Now, some questions I get a lot are, when should I use carbide versus high-speed steel? The rule of thumb I always like to use is from 7/16 to 15/16. High-speed steel is going to be significantly less than carbide. Not significantly, but 20 to 30% less. If you have an experienced drill operator, I would always look at going carbide because you're going to get the most bang for your buck. But if you have a new and an inexperienced drill operator, you want to stick with high-speed steel. That way, if they ruin a cutter, it's not going to cost you a ton of money. Now, carbide starts costing about the same as high-speed steel once you get to about a 1" to 1 1/16 cutter. As it goes higher and as you go higher in size, carbide starts actually becoming cheaper than a high-speed steel. The other question I get a lot is, can I sharpen carbide cutters? Not all companies will do it, but we can. We can sharpen carbide tip cutters, whether you get them from us or not. We can also replace damaged teeth on there. So if you have a really large cutter that you've used, a 3", 4" cutter, and it has 1 tooth or 2 teeth missing, we can rebraze a new tooth on there and sharpen that cutter. So you have a carbide cutter that will work good as new. High-speed steel cutters, you can also sharpen those as well. Again, once you want to make sure it's a bigger cutter to be resharpening, 7/16, 9/16. To me, it's a toss-up if you want to resharpen those or not. But once you get bigger in size, they start becoming worthwhile. Another tip that a lot of folks will do is order a taller cutter than they normally would. That way you can sharpen it many more times. So for example, if you only need a 1" cutter, you could order a 2", and that way you could have that cutter sharpened up to 3 or 4 times and still be able to get the depth you need. So to kick off the alternating tooth design cutter, order $250 or more of cutters this week, and we'll send you a hub logoed Arctic tumbler. Be sure to ask for the new tooth design. You can either email your rep or call us, and we'll make sure you get your cutters and you get your tumbler. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.